the Navigate COVID series has been going on for over a month now, I think, and it's an opportunity for us to kind of really understand what the responses are in relation to COVID. So we're really lucky today, and I'm really excited to have Liz Compton, the CEO of LanguageLoop. Liz, are you able to explain a little bit first about what LanguageLoop does and what kind of support people who speak a language other than English are actually needing most during this COVID crisis?
Sure, thanks, Kira. Well, LanguageLoop, we're a language services company, so that means we're an interpreting and translations organisation. But just to set the scene, so 30% of our population is born overseas, and we know we're a highly diverse country, and we probably think we're about the same as the US or the UK, but only 13% of US citizens and 14% of UK citizens are born overseas. We're at 30%, so we are incredibly diverse, and that brings all kinds of opportunities and it also challenges. So that just sort of sets the scene, and 21% of people in Australia speak a language other than English. So 21%, English is not their first language. So we've been working with government agencies over the last 4 decades, providing interpreting and translation services in courts, schools, hospitals, all of those kind of critical essential services that the government delivers. And that's really coming from the angle of access and equity for all. So that's really part of our DNA. And over the last, I guess, 5 to 10 years, we've been working more and more with major corporate companies, so many of whom are members of TCP and who are on the line today, around, I guess, looking at, well, 21% of your customer base, English is not their first language. How are you engaging with your customers? And really trying to have that seamless customer experience in any language across any channel. So we work with 3,000 interpreters across 180 languages. And really what we're trying to do is work with in the corporate space around any way a customer wants to reach you, they should be able to do that in any language. And with technology making things much more easier these days, as you would know, there's really no reason that we can't be doing that. And indeed we are on that journey with many of the people who are on the call today. And in terms of what people need, it's really around that timely access to information. Not a sort of one policy or one piece of information buried 3 layers deep into a website that's a PDF. It's really having access to that core information that can be life-changing information and being able to access it easily and in a timely manner. So for the corporates on the line, that's, you know, if you have mortgage relief programs, financial hardship programs, and many do, but it's often hard to find that in other languages.
Yeah, definitely. And so I think, you know, we're hearing a lot about how critical communication is. What do you think some of the advantages or benefits are to businesses to ensuring that their resources and services are available in multiple languages?
So obviously, again, looking at your own customer base, every organization talks about personalization and wanting to meet the needs of their customers and differentiating themselves in that manner. But you would imagine language is the foundation of personalization. And so the benefits are you're actually engaging with your customers in a way that they can fully understand you. And you know, we've just done actually a major piece of research looking at multilingual customer needs, and it's been very revealing. And what it's actually saying is 90% of your multilingual customers will recommend you to a family or friend if you were to engage with them in language. And if you think, especially in the utilities space, like the churn rates, cost to acquire, cost to serve, if you've got 21% of your customer base and 90% of those will recommend you, 74% said they would remain more loyal, and 74% said that they would buy more from you. So it's not only delivering your essential and critical service in language to your customer base, in their language, in the right language, there are also huge benefits around loyalty and, I guess, revenue drivers as well to bring those customers on board. And you think of all the marketing activities and how companies try and differentiate themselves. Language is a core, and it's really just not being done in a seamless way at the moment. And it's so obvious given how diverse we are, and it's just sitting there waiting to be taken.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's so many times when we're looking at how do we be better humans in this space of of working with people experiencing vulnerability or just trying to connect with a system that they have every right to connect to. It comes down to the right thing is also the effective, efficient and business savvy thing to do. And I think the more we start to understand that doing what is right by our community is actually a benefit to your organisation, I think the more we'll continue to adopt these good practices. I'm actually going to throw to Gabby. Gabby, I think you've got a question.
Yeah, Belinda from Yarra Valley Water. Did you want to ask your question?
Hi, Belle.
Hi, how are you? I'm Belinda Goodwin. I'm Project Manager from Yarra Valley Water in the Community Inclusion team. Just with the conversation you were just having, I'm just making a few little notes so that I don't trip over my words. We understand that word of mouth is best and the trusted source that you're recommending going through the family or friends or whatever, but how best is it that they would want us to communicate with them? Is it via text or Facebook or written in an email? I understand that each community is different. I know there was some research done, not so, I think about last year, and the Greek community would prefer the Greek radio. I understand that Burmese is at least 4 dialects. We can't translate everything and get it printed for them. So how is it that we need to ask them? What do they want from us? What is the best way?
Yeah, great question, Belle.
I think it is no different to anyone other of your clients. You simply ask them at the sign up stage. So often when customers are signing up to a service or a company, you're asked all kinds of preferences, and this should be another preference that you're asked about how you best would like to be communicated with. And that's quite standard these days. So I'd say it's no different. Depending on what you're trying to do. That's at the individual customer level. It depends if you're trying to do a broad engagement to a particular community. Well, yeah, then there are sort of probably better ways than others to be doing that, but it depends on the age profile as well. But for the top communities, there are fairly tried and tested ways of engaging at a broader level, if that's through the local language newspaper or the local radio.
Great, thank you. And I think, Gabby, we've got lots of questions. Another question, Gabby, I'll throw to you again.
Yeah, we've got Jean from No to Violence. Do you want to ask your question, Jean?
Hi, thanks, Gabby. So I'm from No to Violence, and we talk with men every day on supporting them on how to end their use of family violence. Now, some of the questions I have in my mind is that language is just the start, and the way that we approach different groups needs to be tailored and be culturally appropriate to those different groups. So for Liz, what would your advice be to the different organisations and companies on how to adapt our thinking, our approaches and processes to different cultural ethnic groups? Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, indeed, language is certainly the foundation and the start, but I guess we would never, when we're working with a client and looking at creating content, it's also done in a localized way. So it's called localization, and it's always got to be culturally appropriate. And in fact, if companies are just using some kind of Google Translate toggle and that's it, you may actually do more harm than good by alienating that group, because they know that it's being done in a way that shows complete lack of respect. It's not culturally appropriate, and it just shows disrespect and misunderstanding. So indeed, whenever we're looking at content, it's always looking at creating that in a culturally appropriate way. Otherwise, it just won't resonate, and you may as well not bother.
Yeah, definitely. Gabby, I know you're getting lots of questions, so I'm going to throw back to you again.
Thanks, Kira. We have Wilfred from the University of Melbourne. Over to you, Wilfred.
Thanks, everyone. Just want to ask our speakers on the view that, like in this kind of context, we talk quite a bit of how we engage with the cult community and the individual of them. But what about, I guess, in reverse, that how we can engage with the broader public in Australia to sort of raise their awareness about the diversity of our society, as foreshadowed at the beginning of this seminar. So I think a lot of discussion topics and issues and challenge that we have is on the pretext that the broader public are not that aware of the cultural diversity, let alone linguistic diversity, but often assuming that the Australian society is just that one big culture in a sense, what can we do from a community level? I mean, yes, there was discussion about the government can do some kind of ads, but that's on the federal state level. But I'm just wondering from a community level, are there anything we can do to re-engage to the other side of the conversation? Thank you.
Sure, that's a really great question. I love the way that you framed that. I'm sure there is a myriad of things that can be done. I think it probably comes back to education is always a starting point, and having, I guess, that understanding about true diversity. And again, we know we're a diverse country. We see it, we know it, but I don't think we truly understand what that means. And if you look at coming from a government perspective or an organizational perspective, we still pretty much operate in that sort of Anglo-English way. And so I think education is important. Communities, you can be writing to, I guess, government, to the major corporations who serve us, businesses that serve us, and asking why they're not communicating and engaging in language. I think there's probably a whole series of things that can be done, but it's surprising that given our history, how much we still don't understand about the true diversity of our country.
Yeah. I'm going to throw back to, I know we're getting absolutely hammered with questions, which is great, the level of interest. Gabsy, I'm going to throw back to you again.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kira. We have Caroline from Scope who has a question.
Oh, hi, great, thanks. My question is, have there been any studies about the most effective ways to communicate with called customers? For example, could videos or easy English documents with support help to explain the topic?
Yes, indeed. There are definitely particular cultural groups where video, I mean, easy English is always good, but there are particular languages where there actually isn't a written form, and therefore, or there's low literacy rates in that community anyway. So therefore, video is always going to be a better option. So there are studies that I could probably dig up for you that where particular types of communication will resonate much more effectively than others. And you've highlighted too, English is actually always better across the board, but you mentioned video as well.
Great. Gabs, I think there was a couple more questions, but I'll throw to you, and then we try and keep the answers short because we've only got 2 minutes to go.
I'll throw to Deb at Yarra Valley Water. You've got a great question, Deb.
Hi everyone. Yes, my question is I'm after some opinions on using family members and friends as interpreters. So we hear that happens a lot, and I'm just wondering about some of the pitfalls that might be involved in that.
Yeah, so certainly family members and friends should not be used for interpreting purposes, and we've spent a lot of time working with communities and government to ensure that doesn't happen. Maybe in, if it's in relation to a utilities bill, that's one thing, but in, female reproductive health areas, any sort of health area, it is definitely something that should not be done at all. There is huge risk in that if you are using family members, and we see issues of financial abuse and all kinds of things, and we do see in particular communities, and we have heard stories, if a husband, for example, is translating or interpreting, I should say, for his wife in a health situation, all information is not necessarily passed on, and we know that often does not happen, and things are skewed. So yes, that you should always be using a professional accredited interpreter, no matter really what the reason.
Okay, I'm going to have to call it there, even though I know I've got a lot more questions coming through. I'm so sorry we didn't get to them all, but my advice is when you have these questions, reach out to people like Liz and organisations like Language Loop and the Ethnic Council of Victoria to have these questions. Thank you so much for your time today. We're so grateful for it. We are launching, Liz has done a blog for us at TCP, so we'll be launching that through the TCP Knowledge Hub and I think on our LinkedIn today, so there'll be lots of the statistics she talked about today in that. Thank you everyone, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks again.
Thank you everyone. Bye.